Hey friends, Justin Sandler here, and welcome back to another episode of Unsigned. This is episode 4. Thanks for being here. I'm here. I'm not 100% here, but I'm here. Just got back for an amazing 4-day weekend up in San Francisco for my cousin's wedding, but that drive back to Los Angeles late into the night last night was a lot, and I am struggling today, but I promise to do this every other week, not just to you, but to me. And accountability is so important, especially when doing something so big as writing, editing, and publishing your own book. So, of course, be gentle, take rest when needed, but when you promise to do something, you gotta deliver. And even if you don't feel like it, you gotta still show up, even if it's for a shortened time. So we're gonna do our best today to get through this one. I have lots to update, but we'll see what comes through. Of course, after the last episode, we discussed autobiography versus memoir, and as I learned, I was really writing more of an autobiography / personal development book. And I always wanted this to be a teaching memoir, but we were teaching too much and we were telling too much. And as I mentioned, again, show don't tell is one of the biggest notes my editor Corbin gave me. Well, this last 2 weeks of editing really was putting that into play. See, when I did the last episode, I believe I had just cracked into chapter 3. Well, believe it or not, I had only finished chapter 3 last week. Actually, the day before I left town, or the day I did leave town, is the day I finished chapter 3. Believe it or not, it took me a good 2 weeks to deal with that one. And I, wanted to do a chapter a week. That's my goal. And it's a lofty one, but it was a goal. Of course, I'm shooting high. But sometimes you come up with chapter 3. When I say that, I mean in my book, chapter 3 encompasses a full decade of my life. And it is the decade of moving to Los Angeles and everything that went on in my life, in my career, in my relationships, and beyond. And the chapter is full of heartbreak and pain and loss and all the good stuff that make for drama, but it's all there. So even just sitting down to edit something like that meant reliving some of it to a certain extent. And that can slow the process because feelings come up and memories come up. And I was definitely having those as I was looking back at my life. And of course, some of the greatest experiences I've ever had, but also some of the hardest things I've ever had to go through. And all of that is in chapter 3. So yes, it did take a long time. I mean, you're covering 10 years of a crazy life living in Los Angeles and trying to condense it into this way. Not only that, but it really read more autobiographical because there is my music stuff and my acting stuff and my adventures and life and girls and everything else. And a lot of it was really just kind of stating what happened. Fleshed out a little bit, but mostly kind of like, then there was this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and in description, but still really more of a da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's not really memoir. As we discussed, memoir is following the arc. It's following the storyline. And my storyline has to be very specific because this is not an autobiography or a personal development book. And it's not even a cancer book, as we've discussed. It's a journey. And so therefore, it was about going in there and finding things that really didn't serve me, that didn't serve the story anymore, and making those something that would really be great to show. There's that word again. So what do I mean by this? Well, some things had to get cut and some things had to get really drawn out. And the really drawn out ones, like I said, some of the heartbreak experiences that serve our storyline, well, those are some of the things that I actually had to go back and talk about how I felt, what I was going through, what it felt like on the other side of it, the emotional aspect of it. Just really getting in there and giving all of that. That was hard, but so necessary. And I think we really got it. I think it really reads well now. I think it's still very entertaining, but I think it really touches the heart more. And I think it really serves our storyline a lot more. And that, of course, is the goal of my memoir, is to serve our storyline. Speaking of which, I mentioned Corbin, my editor. We had our call. So I talked about editors a couple episodes ago, the different kinds you can have. And the one I went with was a developmental editor. And the kind of developmental editor I worked with was the one where you pay a flat fee to. She went through the entire book. She gave me all her notes, 265 plus comments, and then a 4-page guide and has how she approached it and what her main objectives were for me and all the things I need to do along the way. Cut this, lose this, expand on this, go deeper here. Where's the storyline? Does it serve it? Here you're teaching, etc., etc. Well, the final part of her package included a 1-hour Zoom call to really go through things and just kind of break things down a bit. Well, I wanted to take some time working the edits first for a few weeks before I did that call, just to make sure I was absorbing and digesting things and really flesh things out that way. So that way when we got on the call with her, I was able to sort of show her what I've been doing, discuss some things, and make sure I was on the right path. Well, our 60-minute call went way over 90 minutes, and I think it would have gone even longer had she not had to be somewhere. She's so sweet, and she was so happy to help. And the coolest part is that she loved where things were moving, and she said, yes, you get it. You're getting my notes. You understand what I'm saying, and I'm sorry. I hope I didn't, offend you, or I'm not trying to destroy your story. It's there. The bones are there. It's great material. It just has to be shaped into that through line. And we talked about a lot of things on that call that really put me into the knowing that I was doing the right thing, that we're on the right path. Even though it's taking some time, we're definitely on the right path and things are moving and grooving. And that's great. Now, one of the things that also was very important with her notes, and I've heard this note from other people before and realized really with changing the overall feel of the book to more of a memoir now, was the title. I had a title, and it was related to my one-man show and the 2 TED Talks I did, and it's my catchphrase. But the problem with the title and the subtitle that I've been using up till now is that it really was more autobiography meets personal development, just like I said. It really didn't grasp the memoir feel, and it sort of also felt like it was a cancer book. And I'm trying to avoid it just being a cancer book because it's more than that. And I don't want to just alienate everybody else and focus on people with cancer. Of course, it's a big part of my story. But that's not the book. That it's part of the journey. And so I had this download a couple weeks ago of a possible title, and I presented it to Corbin, and she loved it. Okay, I think I've got my title. At least it's the working title for now, and I'm not going to tell you just yet. Well, you have to keep showing up to these episodes if you want to find out at some point. But I think I got it. And the title is also right in the theme of my chapter titles. I have a very unique, specific thing, very specific to me and my artistry, as how I've named my chapter titles. And the book title now actually fits so perfectly with my chapter titles. But one thing we did decide to do was take away my parts. Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3, which were named after my 3-step philosophy. But it didn't really serve this journey any longer because it was breaking it down into parts that didn't serve the whole. And so it was time to sort of let those go and be okay with that. Now, where's our big lesson today? Well, it's really more of my journey today in this particular episode, but it also really is emphasizing the importance of the show don't tell that we've talked about in the story and the importance of staying true to the goal. And, it's great that I've done all this writing up until now, and it was a wonderful experience to get everything on paper, on the screen, if you will. But also good to know now for the future that understanding the kind of book you're writing from the get-go is really beneficial. And so if you are early on in your book writing, worth taking some time to figure out what kind of book it is so that you're following that from the start. It will make a lot of your life easier. It will make your life a lot easier, rather, when you get to the editing place instead of having to rewrite as much as I am. Now, the book is getting better, I will say that, because I am taking at it again. I am finding the really heartfelt things, and I'm moving it through the process. But it is taking a lot of time, and that's just the way it is. So look at what you're writing now. Really understand the kind of book you're writing and make sure that you're serving that particular goal from the start to the finish. That's kind of all I want to talk about today. There's so much more, and I'm so tired that I don't have it in me at this point. My goal is to keep cranking, to keep going, and to keep rocking so that by the time we meet again in 2 weeks, I will have completed chapter 4, maybe even chapter 5. Of course, that's being ambitious, but you got to set your goals big. But what I will say is that in the next time we meet, There may be all kinds of cool things that have come to my mind, but one thing I definitely want to talk about with regards to the editing process is cutting. There was a famous author who said, you got to kill your babies. Well, that happens a lot, and I am killing a lot of them. So here we go. The next time we meet, we'll talk about how to cut and be okay with cutting and what to do with the stuff you cut since you wrote it in the first place. Could there be somewhere else you could use it? Anyway, we're going to keep going, keep rolling, keep rocking. I always appreciate you hanging out and following along. It really feels good to be able to share my journey and the process I'm going through. And if any little bits and pieces of what I'm talking about is helpful to you, then all the better. Please share this with your friends who are maybe in the book space or interested in these types of stories. And if you don't yet follow and subscribe to one of my pages, wherever you're watching this, please go ahead and drop that in there. Stay in touch, and stay tuned for more next time on Unsigned.